Okay, so how many of you finished your homework? Anyone finished the homework? Yeah, it's not due today, but and then how many of you are familiar with the JavaScript? JavaScript. Anyone else? Okay, so yeah, it's my actually really a first time to to try to give a lecture on the kind of development or programming kind of a thing, and I myself am just studying this JavaScript and I don't even know yet the D3 yet, although the student or other collaborators that I worked with together are using D3 a lot, and so yeah, in many of my papers, yeah, yeah, many pieces have been developed with the D3, but yeah, it's my own shame, but yeah, I don't know at all about the D3, so yeah, I thought it's kind of yeah good opportunity for myself to study together with you guys about the JavaScript and basic knowledge about D3 programming. And today, yeah, I picked up some like a lab or programming material from one of the famous professor in computer in this InfoBiz and VisAnalytics, whose name is Hua-Min Chu. Hua-Min Chu. I mean, who is a professor at HKUST. And then he has a visual analytics lecture and some of the lab material or programming material. But I found that from this, it's composed of 6, hopefully simple programming kind of lab sessions with the kind of tutorial slides and some exercise code that you can train yourself with. And then I found this lab 4, 5, 6 are those latter 3 chapters are mainly about D3, and the first or former 3 chapters are about just the basics about the JavaScript and some graphical components using a SVG and a Canvas. And then I asked you guys to do the homework up to lab 3, and I also did my own homework last night, and it was quite fun. And I believe that some of you may not have any background at all in JavaScript and web programming and so on, but some others may have really a high background. So I actually invite those expert students, give some advices or give me some corrections or some additional explanations during this class. So either you will learn from this lecture, or otherwise, please try to teach us with as much as you know. Okay. Okay, and then regarding the main D3 lecture, which we will probably have a next time, I will probably use a different material and different exercise problems, and then maybe I will try to post some other some additional homeworks related to D3. Okay, so let me just go through some slides and hopefully some code with the first 3 lab sessions. Okay, so the first one is JavaScript. So I also read this. I looked at this slide just last night. So probably I don't have much background. So I'll probably just read through them, and then if I'm wrong, and then please just feel free to stop me and then correct me or give me some corrections. And so JavaScript is a basic web-based programming language, and then D3 or this kind of visualization library called D3 is built on top of JavaScript. So it's quite important to know this JavaScript and their grammar or how we program with the JavaScript. And so it is saying that it's nothing to do with the Java. So that's the first thing that I was confused, like maybe a year or two ago. And yeah, it's so almost looking like a C without probably using some explicit pointer manipulation. And also it's saying it's related to functional programming. So this functional programming, I'm not good at this, but it's related to something called the lambda programming and things like that. So does anyone can anyone explain what the lambda function or just functional programming is? Yeah, it can be it can be in Korean. Yeah. So. 그 친구가 저기 그렇게 이야기를 해줬는데 아직까지 잘 모르겠더라고요. So some other student who is really good at programming once mentioned that this functional programming is a kind of stateless programming. I don't even know what the stateless or state with state kind of is. 알아요, 성경쌤? 네? 몰라요? Okay, then hopefully we will see later about this. But at a high level, my shallow understanding is so we can so when implementing some function, we usually declare some explicit types or classes for input and output arguments. But in this lambda programming and things like that. It seems to be quite general in taking different types of class objects as an input. So your function body is defined so that it can flexibly take those different inputs and behaves consistently, even with this heterogeneous types of input data. But anyways, Then data types are like numbers, logical, strings, and arrays, and especially it has a null or undefined as a kind of default variable, and objects and functions. And then this kind of custom objects or custom class is also defined as this variable var, and then it has this dictionary kind of type. So it has the member variable of name, whose actual value is this string content of Tommy, and also another member variable of gender, whose content is male initially in this case. And then what is this? Student.name. What does it do? Does it print something or? First of all, is it a member variable or member function? If it is a member function, we should have a parenthesis. Is it right? So by that, we can infer that this guy is a member variable. I don't know what this is doing, but if it is a member function with the parenthesis, with the void input, and then it will do something on your object, right? Okay, and the function is defined in this manner. Okay, then this member variable. No, this is a member function. Definition of a member function. Okay, and then this takes an input as d, and then it's doing something inside of this function body. Okay. Okay, and then in practice, I found this guy this to be important when starting starting with your own JavaScript programming. So typically this JavaScript is embedded in some HTML web programming, and then HTML is just an HTML environment, just not yet JavaScript environment. So in order to start with your own JavaScript programming, you have to enclose that JavaScript code by using this kind of keyword of script and script. Okay, so it's some kind of a starting period and a starting point and an ending point. And then if you externally copy and paste, conceptually run or include the code, externally define the JavaScript file or programming, and then you can write it in this manner. Okay, and then it seems that in your web page, so it's basically web-based programming. On top of this web-based programming using HTML, JavaScript is placed on top of it, right? And then the HTML environment has all the different elements, and that element seems to have some kind of a name or ID, right? And so you can specify some elements as demo, and then it is like from your document. So this is you can think of it as just a web page, okay, some kind of web document, and then within that it has some hierarchy, like so I think it's related to this document to object model. Again, I may be wrong, so please correct me in that case. So one website or one web page can be viewed as so it becomes more complicated. So this is an HTML file, the main file, or the highest possible file in your hierarchy. So this is your starting point. And this one has some header information and some body. And then here we have, in the header, we are sourcing, or we are including this JavaScript file, right? And then it will be run when your HTML renders this header information. Then what is SVG? It's a scalable vector graphics. Scalable vector graphics. So store structures of a picture rather than pixels. So so PNG and JPG, are they vector graphic or not? Are they vector graphic or not? So they are not vector graphic. They are just bitmap images, right? So if you just enlarge them, like a really large, and then you will see some kind of artifact or artificial pattern, whether it's a text or some circles or any other graphical shapes. But this kind of scalable vector graphics. Yeah, so forget about at first forget about this scalable, but in general vector graphics is really like even when enlarging them, you will see really crisp images because they are not storing the pixelized information, but they are storing the parameters that you have to use to redraw that information. So in one canvas, like in this canvas, you suppose you draw some circle here, and then you can store them, store the each position of each pixel along this circle. Okay, so this is a non-vector graphic format of storing this graphics, but you can store some parametric information about the circle. So your circle's center is located at maybe 0.7 and 0.3 out of your entire canvas when setting the canvas size as 1 by 1. Okay, so your center position of your circle is 0.7 and 0.3, and then the radius is 0.1. Okay, so if you store these two really simple or three values, and then even when this canvas is really enlarged so much, you can really have a crisp and exact circles, regardless of your canvas size. Okay, so that's where this scalable comes from. And then, yeah, personally, I asked all my students when writing a paper to include vector graphics if possible, instead of using bitmap-based images, just such as a BMP, PNG, and JPG, and so on. So, yeah, personally, I hate to include them in my paper because that looks my paper really ugly. Okay, so so that way, so in this case, so it's just a HTML grammar. So you start with the HTML kind of object. So this is the very first object at your highest level in the hierarchy. And then within that, you have a object of a header and the body. And then inside of the body, because the body has not ended yet, so you are having another object of a P, which is a paragraph type, and then you have another object called a div. And then a particular object will have a certain set of properties or attributes, okay? And that attribute is predefined, and for this this object type of div has the attribute of ID and style, and things like that. Okay, so these are predefined kind of attribute that you can specify in detail. And so here, this div has the ID or the name called the SVG. So if you in the previous slide, if you use the function of get element by ID, and if you put the ID as SVD, and then it will retrieve or it will return this object called the div. Okay, and then this object, once you brought this object, and then you can call its a member function or retrieve some member variable and so on. And then this and then now inside of this div, it has a like a lower level, additional entity or object called this SVG. And SVG is also a particular type of an object, right? And then this SVG has these attribute as well, okay? And then in one of the attribute, it has the another object as the attribute. So instead of just ID as just a string value, it can have a custom object as a member variable, right? And so this member variable circle, which is a member of this member variable of an SVG, this guy will have the attribute, okay? Just a typical attributes like a CX, CY, and R stroke, and so on. And that way you can set them inside of this, what is that? How do we call them? 뭐라고 box in English? Parenthesis, bracket, and what is it called? Braces? Is it? Really? This guy. What? Isn't braces isn't braces this a curly bracket? Yeah. Square? Square bracket. Okay. Okay. And then so as a beginner for myself, so I myself is really am a beginner in this HTML and this kind of thing. So you can define your object as this you can specify like a starting point and ending point as two separate like this, right? HTML, and then at the ending point you have this, right? But also you can have just a one one object boundary by having this, right? So in this case, it could be like it could be represented as a circle. So you start with the circle by just having the this kind of bracket on the both side, and then cx define those attributes, and then at the end you can have a slash circle by saying it's ending the circle object, or it can be represented as, in this a single line, okay, within just one single pair of a bracket. Okay, so okay, and then there is one notion called a namespace. Yeah, I don't know exactly what it means, but I understand it as a kind of a set of library functions or APIs that contains different member variables and member functions defined inside of this namespace. Yeah, so you kind of import some libraries, and that's called this namespace, and then this document is like the very top level of this hierarchy. Let's see. Like this one. So this is your very first top level of document object, right? And then okay. And then you are creating and adding some sub-level object by calling this function. Okay, so you from this namespace library that you imported, and then you bring this rect object, and then create it, and then like put it as a child node in this hierarchy. Okay, and then that is called this SVG object. It's still a pointer operation, right? So this is a pointer, and then for this object, you are setting these attributes, right? And then these attributes can be also defined by this, something like this. Okay. 이게 여기는 보이고 내 화면은 안 넘어가네요. 여기 클릭하면 되나? 내 화면은 이게 안 나오는데요. 프리젠터 모드가 어떻게 해야 되죠? 여기서는 안 보이겠지만, okay, so so you can set your attributes like in this manner, and then this object is returned, and and then you created this guy, in the lower level of this document. No, up to this point, we are just creating the object, but we didn't put it into the hierarchy, right? So I was wrong in that respect. So we just created that, but I don't know why it is a member function of document. Why is it a member function of document? 근데 그게 다큐먼트의 멤버 펑션인 이유가 뭐예요? 그러면 이 네임스페이스를 불러오면 저게 그러니까 다큐먼트에 귀속해갖고 멤버 펑션을 잔뜩 등록을 해주는 거예요? 아니요. 저 create element ns가 어떤 클래스의 멤버 펑션인 거예요? 그러면? 다큐먼트라는 무슨 HTML 제상위? 저게 그러니까 뭔가 오브젝트 가장 상위 개념인 지네릭 클래스인 오브젝트 같은 개념인가요? 그러면? 오브젝트가 아니라 보이드 클래스인가? 무슨 클래스라고? 오브젝트 클래스 아닌가? 가장 상위에 있는 자바에서도 가장 상위에 있는 클래스가 오브젝트 클래스 아닌가? 아, 그래요? 제가 가장 위에 있는 뭔가 클래스? 가장 지네릭한?
그러진 않는데
네.
데이터를 관리할 때
네.
그 상위에는 페이크 네트웨이나 여러 가지 윈도우 있긴 한데 실제
그 얘는 이 클래스 인스턴스는 어디서 정의가 돼요? Okay, so yeah, up to this point, yeah, we are not entirely sure, but at this point, we just created that element or that object, and then in our hierarchy, we are adding this object that we just created here in the lower level of this SVG object that we created in the previous slide. So we created the object whose name is SVG as a type of class of div, right? So that rect is just appended or as a child in that object. Okay, so we have many different graphical primitives. So just like a parametric kind of parametric formulation or parametric definition of a circle in terms of position of center and the radius, they have different types of shapes, such as a rectangle, ellipse, and line, and polygon, and path and text. And they are some kind of basic set of parametric definitions of these different shapes. So you can conveniently use or call these primitive objects as a function, just like this, by changing this rect and as something else. Okay. And then the task is to create this kind of visualization by using this SVG and their kind of graphical primitives. So this is your second homework. And so, yeah, in the case, yeah, you have to basically draw the rectangle. So in the case of rectangle, you have to define or you have to specify like a top left position and also the width and height. Okay, so those are the 4 parameters, in terms of the shape, position, and the size or the shape of your rectangle. And also additionally, you can also set the color attribute for this bar. And so that attribute is corresponding to this color encoding kind of a thing. So yeah, in somewhere here, you can also specify your color, okay, by using a hexadecimal RGB, like a hexadecimal representation. So you have to basically calculate the position of an X and the width of the bar and the height of the bar, and that way you create the for loop, and then for loop, iterating over your data and each element in your array, and then draw these. Okay, that was the second chapter, and then the third chapter is about the canvas. I'm just reading the slide, but the canvas is a HTML element used to draw graphics on the web page. So it looks like SVG is defined within the JavaScript. Is it correct? But this canvas is also another type of kind of a vector graphic form, but it's directly working on the HTML code. Am I right or wrong? 얘네들은 그냥 같이 있다고 볼 수가 있는 거예요. 그러니까 누가 좀 이렇게 좀 차이는 뭐예요? 예, 뭐 뒤에 뭐 좀 차이들이 좀 나오긴 하지만. 그건 왜 그래요? Okay, so the expert student says, D3, D3 works much better with the canvas rather than SVG. And so to me, they are doing almost the same functionality, but their kind of APIs or functions that we can utilize are slightly different between these two. So it is saying Canvas is much faster and more convenient for moving and deleting elements. And so here, just like defining the div type of an object, so div is a class name, for example, and then this is like a instantiating one class instance or object belonging to this class, right? So similarly, we are instantiating some object belonging to this class called canvas, and it can have like these attributes. And then, yeah, these two lines are the typical starting point. So, so once you created this canvas, so at this point you just created an object that's like just a white canvas, basically the white sheet of the paper. Okay, so that will be placed somewhere in your entire web page. But at this point, you just created this canvas object, and then in order to draw on over this canvas, you start with these two lines. So you retrieve this canvas object as a pointer, and then call this a method called a getContext, and so that way you view this canvas as a 2D coordinate, and then that's when you can start with your drawing. And then these drawing can also draw these line, circle, and text and curve, and so on. So these one were quite interesting to me, at least. So CTX is your kind of pointer, like a pen position. Okay, and then you are either moving this pen position, and then after moving it to a certain position, you draw something as a line, or maybe circle, or maybe rectangle, and so on. Okay, and then this thing kind of stroke. Stroke means it's actually painting your traces of the pens. Okay, and then this is kind of resetting your path. So it's like, so CTX again is like a 2D perspective of your canvas. Okay, that is like a pen position, and then when recording your pen traces, you typically start with this function of a begin path, and then you move your point to the top left. Typically the 0,0 will be top left of your canvas, and then you draw the line from that line to this ending point of 200 by 100, and then from there you will draw another line of 100 by 100, and then from that point you are moving, you are also drawing a circle here. So it's like an arc, which is a general form of a circle. So circle is like an arc that draws the full 360 degrees of angles. Okay, so these two are the center position of 95 and 50. And so you are first moving your pen to this point, and then with the radius of 40, I guess, and then using this kind of angle. And then the stroke. So at this point you are storing all the pen traces, and then when running this command, and then all the pen traces are just painted using some inks. Okay, and then the last homework was to draw this guy. So 네. 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 캔버스가 비트맵이요? 그래요? 나 이거 벡터그래픽인 줄 알았는데 아니에요? 그럼 아까 그 D3가 여기 캔버스랑 잘 한다 그랬어요? 아니면 D3랑 그걸 한다 그랬어요?
아 그래서 캔버스 얘기해서
네.
서로 디스랑 캔버스를 같이 쓰는 방법이 있어서
아,
이제 비트맵 방법이면
아,
더 빠르게
음,
SVG는 이제 하나하나가 좀 엘리먼트를 가지니까
네,
이제 걔네들이 제어하기가 쉬운데 걔네들이 이제 엄청
음,
공간도 많이 잡고
그러니까 기본적으로는 D3는 그러니까 SVG랑 동작하는 애군요.
네.
그죠? 그 다음엔 옵셔널리 캔버스랑도 같이 이제 작업을 할 수가 있는 게 있고. 네. Okay, then yeah, let me ask yeah, hopefully some interesting questions. So SVG, so yeah, let's imagine we draw our maybe our web page as like this white web page or white panel. Yeah, so starting from this white panel, suppose we draw maybe 1,000 circles. Yeah, based on maybe TSNE or any other like a computation demand reduction methods, and then suppose we draw these yeah, these circles corresponding to each data item, and then suppose we yeah, in following this SVG style of a vector graphic, and then we have to handle yeah, if we have 1,000 data point, we have to handle or compute 1,000 circles center point and then the radius, and then draw it by following a certain law or certain rules, and so on, right? And then suppose you resized your web browser from this small to really big, and then what it will perform when your web browser was resized was, so your entire canvas size was changed. So the new the canvas coordinate or the position should be recalculated, right? So if we view it as still as a 1 by 1 as a entire size, and then 0.7 comma 0.3 should be recomputed based on the actual web page panel size, right? So in this case, if we have 1,000 point, and then we have to go through a for loop with 1,000 iteration, and then do individual drawing of this circle. So although it can generate really clear and crisp like vector graphic images, but at the same time it can be inefficient when our data items are really yeah, the number of data items are so many. So in this case, so yeah, if we have a many data items, like hundred thousands of data items, and then suppose our canvas size is really so small, and then we will keep overplotting over and over, right? So in this case, when thinking about the final result, suppose our panel has the total number of pixels of 100 by 100. So our pixel size of our canvas is 100 by 100. So in this case, we have 10,000 pixels in total. So our job will be to just assign some colors to each of these 10,000 pixels, right? So yeah, let's think about this kind of a style of drawing some graph here. And at the same time, alternative way is to just strictly follow this vector graphic thing, and then you go through the for loop with the number of iterations the same as the number of data points, and then suppose your number of data points are a lot more compared to the number of pixels, and in this case you will end up plotting over and over. Okay, so you draw one pixels and assign some color to there, and then some other points were drawn in the same place, it was overlapped, and then you will be drawing or assigning the new pixel values as a RGB to that pixel. So it's like you are redundantly calculating the pixel colors, right, compared to the total number of pixels. So in this case, so we may be better to just maintain this bitmap images, and then maybe when resizing them, when resizing your browsers, and then you can just like you can just enlarge or shrink your bitmap images by using maybe some canvas. So I'm not sure if that's related, but 맞아요. Okay, so yeah, yeah, this is one example. So this is my iPad, right? So this is clearly a vector graphic, because so even if I enlarge my slide, yeah, infinitely large size, it's really crisp, right? So it's a form of a vector graphic, right? But the Apple's trick in this iOS's trick, when I like dynamically resizing them, the transitioning between them will be just using a bitmap images. So we are not keep redrawing their vector graphic forms in these dynamic resizing. They are just transitioning between these resizing operations by using just bitmap images. And then when I release my finger, and then that's when they are redrawing them using a scale of SVG or vector graphic format. So when resizing them, you will see some artifact, although it doesn't show those artifacts, but yeah, trust me. So yeah, so yeah,
그 중에는 가지고 있는
예, 예. 이게 약간 트릭이에요 이게. 그러니까 이거 뭐 내가 예제가 있었는데 뭐 이렇게 resizing 하면 이게 so yeah, when resizing something in your phone, yeah, you will see some artifacts are showing up while doing this resizing, and then and releasing it, and then it will become really crisp. So that way they can handle this kind of real-time operations. And then also in this case, the vector graphic form, just the resizing the pixels may be much more computationally efficient. So that's why